Are we live now?
Yes.
Hello everyone, Shelley Hughes, Senator for District F, and it's Facebook Live time at 6:30 here on the ground floor of the Capitol in Juneau, and I am here in my office, and with me is Buddy. Well, Buddy just got up and walked away, but he's coming back, and we're gonna get comfortable here and talk about a few things. The first thing out of the gate, whoops, I'm gonna grab these. I'm gonna grab, because we only have one copy of these, yeah. So one of the hot topics right now, of course, is the coronavirus, and so I did want to touch on that because I know a lot of you are thinking it is something we all need to stay calm and measured. I liked what Dr. Ann Zink as far as this is a good time for kindness and helping each other and being encouraging. We don't need fear. We don't have any reason to have fear right now. But I did want to provide this website address to you to stay up to date on information. I also wanted to provide a perspective with some of the numbers. And these were current as of this morning. Now, by the end of the day, they could have changed. But as of this morning, and we'll hold this up too. I don't know, are you able to zoom in so I can see it at the same time?
Let's see.
And is the light shining through? Do I need to hold something maybe behind it? Or should I hold something behind it?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, by the way, Lisa is our videographer. Does that help by holding the second sheet behind it?
Trying.
Okay, and we will post this. Lisa actually has an image of it, and we'll post it in the comments section. But compared to the seasonal flu, I just want to see this. It really helps, I think, because right now with the COVID-19, we have 114,000 cases worldwide. As of this morning, 607 in the U.S. The seasonal flu, on an annual basis, there are annually 1 billion cases of seasonal flu. And in the U.S., 9 million to 45 million of the seasonal flu. So you can see number-wise, it's not as rampant as what our normal seasonal flu is. So that's a good perspective. Also, so these two have to do with infections, and these numbers have to do with mortality that are happening. So worldwide, there have been 4,000 fatalities reported, and 22 in the U.S. Every year, though, with the seasonal flu, the number of fatalities is 300,000 to 600,000 deaths worldwide, and in the U.S., 12,000 to 61,000. So you can see our numbers are low. The concerning thing is what they call, it's R-naught, N-A-U-G-H-T, and it has to do with the number of people that would be infected by someone who is infected. And with regular seasonal flu, that's 1.5, I think the estimate. But with this, they're estimating 2.5. Of course, all those numbers are changing. So it's more contagious, basically. It's more contagious. But, and in comparison and where the numbers will land, but the estimate, I was reading on Johns Hopkins' site today that the mortality rate's probably going to fall in the window of 0.5% to 1%. In comparison, SARS was 10%. So I'm just telling you all that to calm your fears. But we still need to do the right thing. We need to wash our hands a lot. They say count to 20 seconds or sing the Baby Shark song. The problem with the Baby Shark song is it's a song that never ends. So you'd be standing there all day washing your hands. Yeah. And not to mention be annoyed by that song repeating in your head. So
already there.
Yeah, it's already there, even just as I say it.
Yeah, sir.
So, but the website again. Let's put. Do you have the sheet with the website? We'll put that up again. So it's what is it, Lisa?
Coronavirus.alaska.gov.
Okay. And then we will also, those numbers I rattled off, which were current this morning, you can hold that up just so people can see that. And then we will also put an image of that in the comments section. So I just want to say I believe that our Department of Health and Social Services Commissioner Adam Crum, his Chief Medical Officer Dr. Ann Zink are on top of this situation, and it's a priority. for the governor. Now, that leads us into the supplemental budget, because the supplemental budget is to cover any shortfalls from the current year we're in, so it's not next year's budget. And oops, I just did something you're not supposed to do as part of the corona. You're not supposed to touch your face, and I just touched my face. They say on average we touch our faces 90 times a day. I probably do double that. But anyway, because I itch. I'm itching right now, in fact. But the supplemental budget actually includes $4 million state dollars for dealing with the coronavirus to add some positions. It would 5 new public health nurses, 3 nurse epidemiologists, 1 microbiologist to assist with lab testing, and 1 emergency manager to assist in the emergency operations center. By the way, we're hearing also, just before we move on from the coronavirus, they are working to get more test kits. So also, in addition to that $4 million in the supplemental budget, it would allow for $9 million in federal receipts for the coronavirus. There I go again. I was about to scratch my face. This is gonna be tough. We're very cognizant of that. And Buddy, you were just reading. Was it a headline about travel restrictions?
It wasn't a headline. An email was received shortly before we went on that there has been a travel restriction for all state employees, and that
Outside the state, though, right?
The Senate President has also implemented travel restrictions for all senators and Senate staff outside of the state of Alaska. So.
Okay. Now, I am going to get up and get a tissue because I am like wanting to touch my face again. Could you start reading some of the people who joined us so we can say hello?
Sure. And if you're going to do that, you need to go wash your hands for 20 seconds. Lynn McCabe and Steve Garner are watching.
Hey, Lynn and Steve.
Mike Coons is watching.
Hey, Mike.
Dee Caranda says good evening. James Squires says hello.
Hey, James.
Samantha Kelly. Cheryl Curtis. Dawson is watching.
All right. Cheryl. And who'd you say before Cheryl and Dawson?
Samantha.
Hi, Samantha.
Georgia Costura is watching.
Hey, Georgia.
Mike Coons put the link on for the CDC website related to coronavirus. Dave Dorsey, Kevin McCabe, Joshua McHose.
Hello to all of you.
Chris
all
Bruner, Brad Rogers, Alex McDonald. Kevin McCabe says, "Can you sing the Baby Shark song for us, buddy?"
He could. He's got a good voice.
I have the ability, but I do not have the desire. Happy birthday is usually the song, says Joshua McHose. Jubilee and Underwood is watching.
Hey, Jubilee. Hey, I want to ask if Brad Rogers, are you the Brad Rogers that went to school with my son? Just out of curiosity, you may not be. That's a relatively common name, but I'm just curious.
James Squires has a question.
All right, James.
Oh, and we just answered it. James Squires says, "Can you confirm that there are now travel restrictions in place for the state of Alaska employees to not leave the state on official business?" So yes, we can confirm that we received that email today. Kathy Moffat is watching. Buddy's James says Buddy's touching his face. I am. We are a petri dish here. It's disgusting. I'm sorry.
So Kathy Moffat, I just want to say thank you to you and to your boss, Superintendent Dina Bishop, for her strong stand on the Alaska Reads Act and supporting a strong policy regarding proficiency-based promotion to end social promotion. I just appreciate that. She and Dr. Monica Goyette of Matsu took a stand on that where the Superintendents Association did not, and I just appreciate their being willing to stand up and be counted in that regard. So thank you.
I'm getting critiqued like crazy for coming anywhere near my face. Kevin McCabe left a comment that I won't read, but Kevin, I hear you. Elizabeth Mann says hi.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Mike Coon says, "Buddy, get the pen away from your mouth." Dixie Steinfeld Banner is watching. Claudia Dolphy is
Hi,
watching.
Dixie and Claudia.
Kelly
So-
Toth is watching.
Hey Kelly, so let's get what issues we were talking about the supplemental budget.
I'm sorry. Can I
Sure.
say a couple more things?
Sure.
Because I was almost done. So Dixie says hi. Chris Bruner says heard about 2 confirmed cases of coronavirus in Anchorage. Is that true? I haven't heard that.
We haven't heard it yet, but we will be watching. We do expect that it will come here. I mean, it's a fact of life right now. I just want to mention, if you're watching the video, he just listed a bunch of names. Could you like the video? You can press love too. If you like or love, and then share it as well, so we get more Alaskans engaged. I've been the one that I have said, I believe this is the time that the silent majority rise up and that the sleeping giant wake up. And the way that's going to happen is if folks like you that are watching this will share the video. So the supplemental budget is...
And I will wash my hands for 1 second for every like that we get. How about that?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, let's get those. And
We
you might
spread
have,
out over time, of course. But.
yeah. Would you agree to sing?
No, we're not.
Would
no.
you agree to sing the
And we're
Baby
not doing
Shark?
a video either. No.
Would you agree to sing Baby Shark sign if we hit over 100 likes? Okay, all right. Well, I'll try.
Nice try though. It's negotiation.
All right. So the supplemental budget, I'm going to say it right out because you're going to hear that it's historic in that it's very high, and there's going to be criticism. It's concerning, of course, to all of us, and we all know what's been happening with the stock market and oil prices. So when you have a large supplemental, but allow me to just state, and we'll be learning more, that those are monies owed for the wildfires we had in an extreme season. So those costs were higher than expected. And then the Medicaid bills are coming in, and based on the plan that is in place that has not been changed, I believe March 15th that the department will not be able to pay those bills to providers. I believe that date is March 15th. It's in March. It's coming soon. So those are, I believe, items we need to address. There's been talk over time that we need to address our Cadillac Medicaid program. I do believe that we do. I am not an expert on it. I'm not on finance or the Health and Social Services Committee. And really, in my view, it needs to come from some of the people in the department that are very familiar. It's a very complicated system, and there are a lot of things related to federal requirements. So it's not just a bill that, for instance, I could slap down. And besides, we're beyond the point of putting forward personal legislation. We were told that there was going to be a bill coming forward, but I haven't seen it. Now I believe it's probably too late to get something like that through. But I think it is something we need to address. We have very generous eligibility. We have very generous benefits compared to what other states have. And so the Medicaid alone and the supplemental is $120 million just to get us from whatever date in March to July 1st. So, and then the fire, I don't remember the amount for the fire suppression, but it was pretty high too. Do you know what that money amount was?
I don't off the top of my head.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
don't. Then there, another one, there's money because we had a record number of people interested in becoming troopers and going to the academy because of the high numbers and the equipment needed. And so once they graduate, we can deploy them. There was an increased request for that. So a number of things that are important. From what I can tell, I'm not sure if there's what you might call fluff in there. It's bills that need to be paid. So I just wanted to say that's coming out. It is concerning because in the reductions we made last year, and then some of the things that were vetoed that were put back in, then when you add the supplemental, we weren't very successful reducing the budget. And that is why we need the Alaska Sunset Commission, which is the bill that Buddy worked on with me. And we know it's not going to get through this year, but we think it's a conversation Alaskans need to have. And based on what's happening right now with the investment earnings and the permanent fund. I saw Angela Riddell in the hallway, and the hit as of Friday to the permanent fund was 1.5 billion, and that will be updated here because the numbers were, went south over the weekend as well, and today. I haven't watched the evening news yet, so I'm not sure what happened during the day, but the morning news.
7.5% loss in the Dow.
Yeah.
Ish. I think that's about right. I know it was over 7%.
So it's going to impact also not only the permanent fund, but the amount of revenue that our North Slope producers, what we're going to be receiving for our annual revenue coming from the oil industry. So there's going to have to be re-looking at tightening the belt and addressing the fiscal gap, I believe, in a multi-pronged way. And primarily the focus has been on the permanent fund dividend, and I think that we have to look at everything. Everything needs to be on the table to address what we're facing. So are there any comments regarding the supplemental budget that anyone would like to bring up? Or?
Brittany Shankus writes, I am a case manager for Medicaid waiver. I have tried to give the department feedback and they do not listen. We are in a serious crisis in the state. Do not cut Medicaid more. I can sit with you and let you know how horrible and dire the situation is for so many. More people will be pouring into the streets in crisis. Serious concern.
And what's this person's name?
Her name is Brittany.
Okay. Well, I'd be happy if you want to call my office, Brittany. We can have a conversation to understand. And as I've said on numerous Facebook Lives, that I have no problem with a permanent safety net for the truly vulnerable, but the folks that can get back on their feet, I think it is a mistake to have ongoing and kind of a generational cycle of Medicaid and public assistance. So those that are disabled, elderly, that cannot support themselves, it's a whole different story than those that have the potential to do so. So those are the kind of things we need to be considering as we look at the Cadillac plan. My understanding is that people that are on Medicaid, their insurance can actually be better than those that have private insurance in many cases. So can the state afford that right now? Probably not. Yeah, is there another issue, anything regarding the supplemental?
No.
So we have, there's a hearing we wanted to bring up that is coming up. And I don't know, are you able to zoom in on this? Put this behind it.
Is there opportunities for public testimony?
Is there actually going to be testimony on what SB 113?
It's listed for public testimony.
Okay.
That's why I put them in.
Okay, this is a bill that we've sponsored, SB 113. Doesn't cost a penny. It just encourages teachers to become nationally board certified because it's such a rigorous program, and research has shown that when teachers have this board certification, students have better outcomes. Bottom line, the teachers is a very high quality program, so we want to encourage that. So it sets a target to increase that, and then districts would.
Let me help you by holding it closer because you can't see it on the
It's
screen
not-
that way.
You can't?
No.
Because it is on.
There we go.
There we go. So that's going to be Thursday at 9:00, and that's in the Senate Education Committee. So if you're someone who wants to see our students improve their outcomes, if you want to make sure we have great teachers, I encourage you to send in written testimony. You can send it to our office, and we can get it on basis, or you can call in and testify. Great teachers can make all the difference in a child's life. Also, these two, the PFD bills, are of great interest. And the first one, by Representative Wool, would, out of the POMV draw,
I have
percent of
additional
market
details
value.
if you just want to say what
Okay,
it is.
well, I just want to say this would be 15% of the draw would be for the PFD in this bill, in HB 300. In HB 306, it's 20%, I believe.
For the dividend.
For the dividend. So 15% in HB 300. HB 306 is 20%. And those bills are also going to have an opportunity for public hearing Thursday, so same day as the education bill, but at 1:30. So in the afternoon this week. And what we'll do now is show you the phone numbers, which
Actually,
are...
we'll post that on the.
Aha! Here they are. Here, and we'll post this image also, but those are the phone numbers so that you can call into the House Finance Committee about the PFD on Thursday at 1:30. And then back over here, we have my constitutional amendment. It's a resolution, SJR 13, regarding abortion. We had a very short time, 12 minutes, I think, today in Senate Judiciary, just because we ran out of time, and it will be up again on Wednesday. And on Friday, we had today an African American Democrat senator from Louisiana who had a similar constitutional amendment passed in her state. And she spoke, she was an attorney, and she made the point that because they are allowed to have parental consent or parental notification, it has helped in regards to human trafficking of young girls. So when someone is brought into an abortion clinic and is a minor, when they have to verify that the person bringing the young girl in is a parent, they've actually been able to catch some human traffickers. So we're not able to have any kind of parameters or anything pertaining to that has stood on our law books, because every time we in this building have passed something, or a voter initiative has passed something, it's been struck down by our courts. So that, I encourage you to weigh in. The amendment will have a public hearing Friday at 1:30 in the Senate Judiciary Committee, and those numbers again, here they are, and Lisa will post those. So Friday at 1:30, if that's an issue near and dear to your heart, that I ask that you consider calling in. I suggest you get online early. We had over 100 people online to testify for that it was in what, I lost track what the date was, but it was in the Senate Health and Social Services Committee. So yes, so anyway, those are hearings coming up about teachers, about the PFD, and about the constitutional amendment related to abortion. So with that, are there some questions or some comments?
Christopher Carmen says, I understand that we tax the dog snot out of the oil companies because they're profiting off of our resources. But from what I understand, mining barely gets taxed. Can we raise taxes for mining?
You know, that has been discussed. I'm not currently sitting on the resource committee, so I don't know. Right now, it has to do with the cost. You know, it's expensive to do business in Alaska. And you know, if I think it should be considered and looked at. I'm not saying that they need to be raised right now because I don't know the economics and what's happening. I do know that we don't have as much mining going on as we should. In my opinion, it's a pun, but it's an appropriate one. We've barely scratched the surface as far as what we have in the state and what could be mined. If we raise taxes on that sector, you're probably going to see less activity rather than more. So but it certainly should be considered. I mean, we do have a fiscal gap, but I can't speak to that. I haven't studied that issue, but I'm sure.
But I'm not sure it's even true that we aren't taxing mining, or that mining isn't paying enough in taxes either.
Right.
So I'd be careful going down that road, because
right.
The mining has a lot more overhead and a lot more environmental bumps and hurdles to get through in order to even start a mine. So that would take a lot more research, and I'm just not familiar with it either.
Sorry, I'm just noticing how nice these flowers smell. Can you see the flowers on the camera?
No.
These flowers are really something because I got them on sale. They were like expired, so it was like $5.99 a bunch. And how many days have we had them? Like 10 days?
Yeah.
I'm afraid to touch them because I'm afraid everything's going to fall off, but I'm enjoying the sweet smell from them.
Okay, so Janet McLean says, Becoming national board certified costs a lot of money. Our pay is currently decreasing due to the rising cost of healthcare that the Massachusetts School District is forcing teachers to absorb. You can say that quote unquote great teachers are board certified, and that is true, but it is expensive.
Yes, and there are many great teachers who are not board certified, so I want to qualify that. My understanding, it costs about $2,000. Some districts do choose to give a salary bump. That's up to the districts at this point. But yes, I do acknowledge that there is a cost. My understanding is it's something that a teacher can spread out over a few years. So I don't know how those payments work, but I understand. And if I'm wrong, did you say that was Janet who said that? If I'm wrong
Yes,
about the 2000,
McLean.
Janet, please correct me. But that's what I recall.
Lisa Peterson is watching.
Lisa.
Karen Matson is watching.
Hey, Lisa and Karen.
Mike Coons asked you to support SB 179, Nursing Licensure Multi-State Compact. Alaska Commission on Aging is supporting, so is AARP and AMAC.
Yeah, that's been a bit controversial, but it seems like the support is rising for that. I had a nurse that lives in Chugiak attend my coffee chat at the cafe there, and his schedule is such that he would love to be able to pick up extra work in other states and then bring that money back to Alaska. So nurses sometimes have schedules where they have a block of time they work and then a block of time off. So he was very interested in it so that he could, his income potentially could go up. So I think the hospitals see it as something that would be very helpful. I believe the Native Health organizations, I'm not sure about that, but I think they're interested. There is a shortage of nurses, and it's would allow, to make sure that we have nurses where they need to be. So, yeah. It did pass out of Senate Hess, and I'm not sure where that bill is now.
Did it pass out of the House?
They passed it out. They passed it out right before our bill was passed out.
Not sure about that. I thought
you
they
can
set
double
it
check.
aside. I thought they set it aside.
Oh, maybe they did.
There was one person who seemed to have an issue with it. So.
Yeah.
What else do you want to talk about? There's no one. Neil DeWitt is watching.
Hi, Neil.
John Sommer is watching.
Hey, John.
Mike Kuhn says it is on to finance, so I guess I stand corrected. I'll double check. Mike knows. He stays on top of these things, so
Yeah.
Mike would know.
Exactly.
What else do you want to talk about? No other questions, and it's almost 7. How
Yeah.
late did you want to go?
Well, we can wrap up if there's no one here bringing anything up. I will.
I do. Maybe a little quick brief on these two, because I know that everyone's interested in the permanent fund dividend
Absolutely.
and these two bills.
Go for it.
We kind of briefly touched on it, but I want to just point out the two main there's two main differences between the two bills that we discussed and that are going to be heard and that are being heard this week, and there's going to be public testimony for on Thursday. So the bill introduced from House Rules, which Representative Kopp is the chairperson of, is an 80-20 split. 80% to government for us to pay whatever we need,
Right.
whatever we
It
want
leaves
to
it
do,
open.
and the 20% left for the dividend. Representative Wool's bill, which is HB 300, is kind of broken down even more. It's you do the draw,
Mm-hmm.
and then 40% of that goes to just to education.
Mm-hmm.
And then 10% of it was just to the university system. And then another 10% just for capital projects. Another 10% would go to a community needs fund. And then the remaining funds would be split 50-50 between the permanent fund, dividend, and then any other general fund
And
priorities.
that remaining amount is 30%, which is why then the PFD becomes 15%.
So you split the 30 in half. If you went off of the latest numbers we have, the PFD would end up being $720.
The interesting thing about it is, first of all, it's a bill. So you could have all kinds of fancy things and how much would go, but it would always be up to the legislature whether they wanted to follow it or not. So that's really important to understand on any of these bills. And the 80%, 20%, same thing. It could be totally ignored. So it's really not solving the problem that we have had in this body for the last 5 years. It's not going to settle the issue, and the courts would always side with the legislators being able to ignore a statute when it comes to an appropriation, because the Constitution grants full appropriation power to the legislature. So, having said that, I also want to mention the thing that's super frustrating for me as we look at the gap and how are we going to address it. And ladies and gentlemen, it is a real gap, and there's not the political will at this point to make $1.5 billion in cuts. And that $1.5 billion likely will grow depending what happens with the markets and oil prices. But let's just, for conversation's sake, say it's at 1.5 billion. There's not the political will to make those kind of reductions. So we have to figure out how to plug that hole. And when people are pushing 15% or 20% for the PFD, they are looking at that PFD as being the only answer, the only solution, the only prong. It's a one-pronged approach. And ask any economist, that's a mistake to put it all on the backs of Alaskans. And I can understand, and I can understand the perspective of the folks that look at that and say, well, you know, as long as that money is there, why should we tax this or that? But the point of it is, it's all on Alaskans, and there are other things that could be done, whether it's reducing the budget, which still needs to be discussed. And the Alaska Sunset Commission, as we mentioned before, what's our bill number for that? SB, I don't remember what it is, but that's the conversation starter. And the sunset feature is that the audits of all the offices and sections and divisions is, the concept is that the legislature needs to take it up, that it's not something that just sits on a shelf and collects dust, but we have to look at what they recommend. And their recommendation would include, how is this division performing? Is it meeting its statutory obligations? Is it meeting its constitutional obligations? Could it be doing so with maybe fewer staff? Could part of its duties be absorbed somewhere else and this little unit go away? Or maybe it's like this unit is not meeting its statutory obligations. They need additional staff. Prosecutors is an example. The prosecutors, I believe, are plea bargaining down things and having trouble keeping up with a number of cases. There's a shortage of attorneys. We talked about there being a shortage of nurses. There's a shortage of attorneys right now to fill the prosecutor positions. There's a shortage of, what's the other? Oh, teachers too. So there are different areas where we are struggling with some of these professions, which I'm going to say something that's really a strange tie into SJR 13, the constitutional amendment related to abortion, and Buddy's concerned about what I'm going to say. But you realize in this modern 21st century, we have many more different types of jobs that young people have options, different careers. It isn't just a handful. There are multiple types of opportunities and careers that people have. And that is one of the reasons, I believe, why we don't have enough teachers, why we don't have enough nurses, why we don't have enough prosecutors. And how am I tying this into SGR 13? Well, millions of babies have lost their lives. Could it be, with the modern world that we have and the need for all these roles, that perhaps if we weren't aborting some of these babies, we'd have the people that we need for these different roles? I know that might seem like a strange tie-in, but the fact is, when we start seeing professions that have been great professions that people have gone in for decades, and all of a sudden in 2020 we have a shortage of 3 major areas: teachers, nurses, and attorneys. What is going on? Young people aren't picking those, and maybe we don't have enough young people to take what this world requires at this point. So there's a theory that I'm just putting out there.
Okay. A couple more, and then do you want to wrap up, or?
Yeah, sure.
Mike Kuhn says, was there ever a written report from the PFD working group? The answer is yes. You can find it on basis under the last meeting that the PFD working group had. And James
and I will say it was a disappointing report because it really didn't recommend anything. Yep.
And James Squires says, as we face this fiscal crisis, don't you wish the governor's cuts from last year had gone through?
Would have been helpful, James.
And that the legislature, he says 6 senators or 11 reps had denied the reverse sweep.
Yeah.
So I don't know that would have made much of a difference.
Yeah. We've had some questions about the reverse sweep, and there was actually $1 million auditing bill that had to be paid because of what happened last summer and the delay. And some of those, it's in my understanding is the governor is not going to push stopping the reverse sweep, James. I'm not sure about this, so he should speak to it directly. But part of it is some of those buckets of money are entangled in different statutory requirements. So it's something where some of those buckets could indeed and should indeed be put into the general fund, but it's somewhat of a very confusing nightmare that somebody needs to sort out. My understanding, it has not been sorted out. We have a change in leadership in the Office of Management and Budget, and it's not something that can be done quickly. It would take quite a review in order to do it. I'm disappointed that it did not occur, because that would be helpful right now.
Well, but then so last summer was kind of a blur. There was so much going on, but there was even some legal debate about what funds were sweepable and which ones weren't. And then even the governor signed back into law the bill that ended up not doing the reverse sweep. So there was some back and forth and negotiating, and the governor ended up backing off of that even last year and allowing the reverse sweep to happen. So, we could debate where we were and what happened with that for a long time. If you reverse swept all of those funds, sure, you could have, as James says, put a couple $1 billion back into the CBR. But there was an argument to be made that there was a statutory obligation to fund those funds anyway, so you just have to reverse sweep the reverse sweep to have your statutory obligation. So it could go back and forth. It was a very complicated issue.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, whether it's Medicaid or these kind of things, a lot of these things are going to require statute change. And it's like, why aren't the people that are involved with this, why aren't those bills being put forward? And I would say that to the administration, they need to be putting that forward so we can take a look at it.
But I'll also say too, when you mentioned the Sunset Commission, I didn't chime in, but one thing I wanted to mention about that is that even with the Sunset Commission, there is so much formula funding in the state that you really don't get into seriously cutting the size of the budget, if that's what you want to do, until you start having those difficult debates about formula funding. And I'm afraid if we keep going down the road we are with the oil prices and the lack of revenue, that's a debate that's going to have happen.
My face is itching and I'm using a tissue just so you can see. And actually, that's one of the, if there's an interest in a Sunset Commission, like has worked successfully in Texas, expanding it to even assigning them to look at the formulas and how they might be recrafted is something that would be of interest that could come up in a hearing that I think is necessary. One of the most important things, I cannot believe I have not mentioned this, but before we go, for the last 5 minutes before we close out, I believe the most important thing, and what I would love to get done if we can't get agreement on the PFD and other things, is looking again at a constitutional spending cap. There's been a push for a statutory spending cap, kind of as a test ground for a constitutional one. Well, I suppose it'd be better than nothing, but really, again, it's not going to hold. And I think for our credit ratings for businesses, for industry. If they knew we were putting a cap on our spending, I think we'd be a much more business-friendly place. It would give people a better confidence in investing in our state if they know that if they come in to start a business or to develop our natural resources, they're not going to get beat up over the head through taxes. And so I just think that with what's happening in the markets, the constitutional spending cap is more important than ever. And as you know, last week the motor fuel tax passed in the Senate. I'm quite sure there are 21 votes over in the House to pass that. I don't know what the governor intends, but by golly, you know, when you're starting to pull tax levers and you do not have a spending cap, constitutional spending cap, it's a big mistake. It's a big mistake. So I would like to see every legislator in this building, all 60 of us, have to go on record whether we support a constitutional spending cap. And I would love to see legislators come together, cross party lines between the two bodies, and say, yes, we need a constitutional spending cap. When legislators are looking to go after people's wallets and there's no interest in a constitutional spending cap, that doesn't make sense. And so I believe that should be the number one thing we ought to be pushing as far as the fiscal gap right now, is a constitutional spending cap. If people in an election year aren't willing to do something with the PFD, well, that is what it is. But in an election year, I think that being willing to say, yes, we're not going to just escalate our spending off the charts on an ongoing basis, I think that, you know, that is something we could do in an even numbered year. And I think that the people of Alaska would appreciate it. I know industry would appreciate it. I know future businesses that might want to come to our state would appreciate it. So that's my pitch. If you agree that we need a constitutional spending cap, talk to people around the state, talk to your coworkers, talk to your family, talk to your neighbors, talk to your fellow, you know, whatever social groups you're in, people at church, wherever you are socially, talk to people about the need for a constitutional spending cap, because serious decisions are going to be made that will impact households, your budget, and you know, you're going to be asked to be step up and pay to support our state. So I would think that Alaskans would really, really support a constitutional spending cap, and I think the time is now, and it is something that can be done in an even numbered election year.
And Ron Gillum says, I don't believe that there is a political will for a constitutional spending cap, not yet anyway. And I actually I don't know that I'd agree with that.
Yeah, you know, Ron, I've kind of thought the same thing, but I think when push comes to shove and people are starting to press the green yes button on taxes, I think pairing that up with a constitutional spending limit would actually probably be something that some legislators would like to do. And when the value of the permanent fund, I'm trying to itch my face again, when the value of the permanent fund is going down, that makes people concerned too. We need downward pressure on the budget, and to make sure we need to fix what's in. There's a high constitutional spending cap right now, but it's meaningless. It needs to come down. So I guess that's my final topic, and if you have any comments from people you want to read before we sign off, that's fine.
We're done. We've actually read every single comment tonight.
Okay, well, thank you everyone. Have you liked the video? What were you going to do if we got enough likes? You were not going to sing Baby Shark, but you were.
Oh, look at the time. We're gonna have to. It's time to wrap up. We've been on for 45 minutes.
What was the promise?
So here we go. It's great to see everybody.
What was his promise, Lisa?
And hope that you turn in next week.
How many seconds must Buddy wash his hands?
I don't know. We're gonna have to check it out later.
How many
I can't
likes?
see.
Can you see the likes,
They're
Lisa?
coming in.
Okay.
I don't get a total yet.
You're Indian. You got 30 seconds.
You guys can hit like repeatedly.
No, you can't. You're done.
Keep hitting it. Keep hitting. Share the video, and talk to everyone you know in the state of Alaska about the need for a constitutional spending cap. And with that, we will say good night and thank you for joining us.